We're in the series Problems, 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 Problems. And today is, we're going to look at the subject of stress. Do they have the next slide? I want to thank Matthew and I want to thank Andrew and all of you. Thanks for your response to last week, trying to get a little bit more presence on social media. We picked up, whoa, you got way ahead of me. Back up. Go back to the social media. There you go, okay? We picked up about 15% of you on the Facebook page, close to 200 now. But in the group, we picked up 110%. That was great. Well, thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you. Yeah, I know it was you, buddy, all the way through. I know it was completely was you. Yeah, God using you. Okay, God using you. So thank you for that. All right, here's what I need you to do. I need you to stand up. Oh no, what is that? Oh no. All right, I need you to stand up. Listen carefully. I'll explain it in about 20 minutes. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to breathe in through your nose for a count to 4 for a second. You're going to hold that breath for a count of 7. Those of you who have trouble counting, ask your friend next to you to use fingers. So you're going to breathe in through your nose for 4 seconds. You're going to hold that for 7. And then you're going to breathe out through your mouth, not nose, mouth, for a count of 8. Okay? You're going to do that 3 times. 3 times. Okay? Ready? Go. And if you haven't fainted when you finish, sit down. Obviously, we all count differently. Supposedly, yes. All right. So we're in the series Problems, and Problems. Last week we looked at worry in a minute, and really next week we're going to look at the larger problem that you worry on steroids of stress. I want to remind you this template has really already been a lot to me personally in the journey. Problems are going to happen. They may or may not have a label on them. We looked at worry and then a couple weeks on stress. But I'm telling you, week by week as we make our way through these problems, this template proves to be true. We can manage the issues that come into our life, whether self-inflicted or others have inflicted, or just simply the world in which we live in. We need to know that God is with us. We've got to have that assurance. We know, most of us intellectually, that He will never leave us nor forsake us. We just need to know, sense, and feel His presence in the midst of the problem and the difficulties. The second thing is we need to know we're not alone. It doesn't necessarily have to know someone going through the same thing or having gone through the same thing that you're going through problem-wise. We just need to know that there's somebody, flesh and blood, there who cares. Who cares. That it matters that you're going through a problem experience. And then third, we really want to know what to do. Now, the danger here is we tend to ask why rather than what. We tend to ask, why is this happening? Why is this happening to me? But the better question is, what's God trying to say? What's God trying to do? How should I respond? What's God's wisdom? What's the wisest thing to do? And then last is we've got to have, and I think again this is Spirit energized, we've got to be patient. We have to wait. And that's a hard thing for some of us. We need perseverance. We need courage to make our way through the problem. Okay? And these four things are just going to be part and parcel week after week after week. Some weeks we'll emphasize more or one or two of these than others. But these are the handles to help us to manage our problems, as it were, more carefully. Okay, today is stress. I struggled for the word. I wanted to put elimination, but to do that, I have to shoot everybody. You know, the only folks that are not stressed out are buried in woodlawn. Okay? So, I'm after management. Okay? Maybe a little bit of reduction. Okay? But elimination is not going to happen. I'd like to tell you, everyone you love could die and you could move as a hermit to the nearest mountain and just live by yourself and you'd have no stress, you'd have stress. It's just part of you and I and our fallenness and living in a fallen world. So I'm after, as it were, management. Maybe a little bit of a reduction, but certainly no elimination. It's part of the human experience, okay? I want you to look, I don't know if you can read these. I've got it printed out. I want you to look at some of the statistics that are there. This was amazing. This is about stress. It's killing you. 44%, that's almost half, of Americans feel more stressed than they did 5 years ago. 1 in 5, that's 20%. There are 140, 50 people in the room, 20%, 30 of you experiencing extreme stress. Extreme stress. Shown in, frankly, maybe shaking or heart palpitation, depression. A 60% increase in productivity over the past 20 years and stagnant wages. Most of us, not all perhaps, are working more, working harder for either no more money and no more time away. You're having to invest more of yourself than you did before to stay where you were, perhaps even financially, years ago. And that really builds the stress. Stress is the basic cause of 60% of all human illness and disease. 60%. 3 out of 4 doctors' visits are for stress-related ailments. I know years ago, and thankfully it's been a number of years ago, I started having, for lack of a better word, just reflux. And I went through everything. I think they went in both ends and just, everywhere they did. And in the end, okay, TMI. That may mean you've just not been there yet. So hang on. Okay, one day it'll all be behind you, but that's all different stuff. Okay. And when it was all over with, you know the answer. And I just can't find anything wrong with you. I think it's stress. Many of you in the room had that same diagnosis. They just couldn't find anything. It's almost like you hoped something was wrong. You wondered going in if that was the issue. And for a long time it was for me. Stress increases the risk of heart disease by 40%. The risk of heart attack by 25%. And the risk of stroke by 50%. And how do some people manage this stress? They think they can eat their way out of it. 40% of stressed people overeat, or they eat unhealthy food. They have a chocolate binge or an ice cream binge in order to try to deal with it. 44% lose sleep every night over being stressed. Now, that's a vicious cycle. When you're losing sleep, that doesn't make tomorrow any better, does it? Makes it extremely, extremely difficult. And then we all go through what I call, stress events, whether it's financial or family or are work-related, those stress events that surface in our lives. It's not a pretty picture, is it? I want to begin by saying, I just got to get a sense of where you are in your understanding of stress. So, Andrew helped me, and I want you to complete these sentences. I want you to complete these sentences. Go. All right, here we go. I'm at my wits. Bad. Number 2, I'm all stressed. 3, I feel like resigning from the human. 4, I'm all shook. You had to know Elvis for that one. I'm at the end of my. I'm coming unglued or done. Unglued or done. I'm about to fall. 8, I'm ready to throw in. I'm just a bundle of. And 10, I'm up to my neck in. Alligators. Alligators. You know, I'm in the opinion most of you in the room could probably teach this lesson, because you understand the difficulties of dealing, as it were, with the stress. Take your outline. It really is not intended to be an epistle, but that's what it looks like, because we're going to, I don't know how far we're going to get. I'm going to go about another 20 minutes or so after table time. We'll pick it up next week wherever we are. The statistics tell us this is a common condition. Very common. I think it's part of the human condition. Again, my goal is not to eliminate stress. We can't get there, but how do we manage it and perhaps even reduce it in our lives? I was reminded of some biblical characters and how they struggled with the stress points, the stressors in their life, and how for some of them, 2 or 3, stress manifests itself in a lot of different ways. Fatigue, anger, overeating. But I think one of the more common, and you see it even more so in Scripture, is depression. Struggling with depression. Moses. God called Moses out as unqualified as he felt. He's asked to lead 2 to 3 million, largely unbelieving, hard-headed, and hard to get along with Hebrew nation. And God promises to provide guidance in the cloud and the fire, promises to provide food, and all the people of God continue to do is rebel. And Moses just kind of gets fed up here. Up to here. And I'm not sure, I think Moses vacillated between, number 1, can you kill all of them? Or number 2, maybe it'd be easier if you just kill me. But I gotta have deliverance here. Moses experienced stress and responsibility and difficulty. And then Elijah. In fact, for your reading for next week, I'm going to ask you to read Elijah's experience out of 1 Kings chapter 19, verses 1 to 18. I'll show you that later on the slide. But he moved, and this often happens in our journey. He went from a real spiritual high, emotional, psychological high, and dealing with dozens and dozens of false prophets. God miraculously worked through him. I mean, he deals with all of these false prophets and King Ahab. And then the next thing we know, he's on the run to a cave because a woman is after him. Now, as a man, I don't blame him. Okay. Her name was what? Jezebel. How many of you, your wife's not there? How many of you feel it? Jeremiah, an exilic prophet, ended up in a deep, dark depression as a result of all the stress that he felt, as a result of where he was and what his responsibilities and expectations were from God. And then Jonah. I mean, we know the story of Jonah. We think about the guy that got swallowed by a whale and spit out. But what depressed Jonah is that eventually carrying out his assignment, thousands and thousands of people say yes to Jesus, he gets mad at God because he feels like they all should have been destroyed. And he ends up stressed out and depressed. And Job, now, if anybody ever had a reason, okay? I mean, here's the guy that had a lot in terms of family and relationships and stuff and what have you, and he lost it all, and he lost it all quickly. The only thing that he didn't lose is the one thing that he probably prayed that he should have lost, and that was Mrs. Job. Okay? And then he had 3 so-called friends who made his life miserable month after month after month after month. And he just basically ends up praying to God, I just wish I'd never been born. I just wish that I could die. And on and on and on. I think Paul struggled. You read 2 Corinthians 1, you read 2 Corinthians chapter 4. I guess I'm saying all that I find some hope and comfort in the fact that some of the greatest and strongest and most impactful believers struggle with this. And the symptoms of it and the outcomes of it, stress. And the reason I say that is, I think one of the enemy's greatest tactics is to beat us up. And we let him beat us up. When we think that certain things that we go through, if we were a good Christian, we shouldn't experience. Listen, life is difficult. Life is difficult even for unbelievers. Yes, we do have resources. But I don't know about you, but I know those 4 resources. And so do many of you. But that doesn't mean we always step into them, does it? Sometimes it's easier to close the curtains, close the blinds, turn off the lights, and pull up the covers. Sometimes it's just easier to do that. And one of the things I hope you'll see when you go through Elijah next week, God did ask him twice, what are you doing here? This is not what you really should do. But God didn't fuss at him. God didn't say, I'm so disappointed in you for running and hiding and wanting to die. God ministered to him, just like he would us if we let him. Even Jesus, I think, struggled in his humanness with all the responsibilities that were laid on. We'll look at that in Scripture in just a few minutes. The agony certainly in Gethsemane, just struggling in his own humanness with everything that was happening. Modern examples. Raise your hand if you know somebody who's extremely stressed. Raise your hand if you know somebody. Keep your hand up if that's you, but never mind. All right. Okay. All right. I'm going to walk through. You've got it in your outline. These are, for lack of a better word, kind of warning signs that you're trending, as it were, into an extreme stressful situation. Here's what I'd like for you to do. If you got something to write with. Imagine each. I think there are 10 of them, if I remember right. Yeah. Rate yourself 1 to 10 on each one of them. 10 means as high as you can get. I'm going to read through each one of these. Rate yourself. Write a number in the margin next, like 4, 3, or 9. Okay? And if it's really bad, 12. Circle it in red. Okay? And I'll repeat this when I get through them. It's not any one of these, or maybe even 2. It's a combination of 3 or 4 that are running in a range of 6, 7, 8 that can cause real issues. So I'll give you a moment to write down your response to each one of them. Here's number 1. You are beginning, despise is a strong word, but you're just not really wanting to be around people, and your compassion for them is continually decreasing rather than increasing. Rate yourself 1 to 10. 10 is I hate everybody right now. Okay? And I don't care about anybody but me. That's a 10. Okay? Number 2, you often think about doing something other than what you're doing. And your biggest desire isn't to honor God and reach people, but simply to find relief from the pressure that seems to be building daily inside you. 3, you cannot remember the last time you simply had fun with family and friends. And joy is something you talk about but are not experiencing yourself. 4, you're disconnected at home, but it could be work relationships, not just limited to that. When you get there, you don't want to engage with spouse or children. You cannot enjoy being around them. You spend more time online than you do with your family. That's an escape mechanism, kind of like the food. And you find yourself wanting to sleep all the time. 5, on the back. You continually tell yourself and those you love that this is just really busy season and that things are going to slow down soon. In all probability, your loved ones and friends have been hearing you sing that song for years. 6, you are continually becoming obsessed with what others say about you. A little paranoia. And one negative comment from someone who does not like you can put you into an incredibly deep valley and cause you to feel hopeless. Just that, and I'll get more of this in a few minutes, it's just that deep, some unhealthy hunger for the approval of others. 7, you begin to make easy decisions rather than the right ones, because the right ones take too much work. 8, there's no hope in you, and you actually despair life. You've actually thought of death, and some have entertained even suicidal thoughts. Number 9, you are experiencing unexplained depression and or deep anxiety. You are even having panic attacks and you just can't explain it. And then 10, you're increasingly becoming withdrawn from family and friends. And I didn't even really get into all the physical repercussions that can come to play and struggling with the warning signs of stress. Again, I don't think it's any one of these. I think it's a combination of 3 or 4 or 5. It could be 2 or 3 if they're running in the 8, 9 areas. It's just intended to be an attention getter. On the screen, I rated myself, and I gave myself a 7 on the stress meter. The bluish gray, or whatever that color is, was without any coaching or prompting. On a scale of 1 to 10, I asked my wife to rate that. And she gave me a 6. That concerned me more than my 7. Because I think she was being, which is her primary gift, merciful. But it was intense together. I remember, she and I, discussing this. The good news that I would say and she would say, that as the years have gone by, that I am much better than I was. You can't go much more to the right. Okay? So I never asked the obvious question, well, how bad was I? No, Beth. No, Beth is good friends with my wife. I don't think I want to recognize her when I went.
I added up my 10 things, and then I divided by 10 to get my average score. So I'm wondering if that's how you got to your 7.
Nope. She said she just added up